In today's world more than ever, designers are hired to go and not just make good design choices, but to make the things they're designing shine above the rest, or connect people in a way that is special, whether it be a building that looks exotic, a logo that is meant to truly represent the brand in the best way possible, or even something as simple as a color scheme to make a store pop. Having the right design is essential for success. And yet sometimes people don't do as good as, well, they probably should have. So allow us to show you the ugliest design mistakes ever made. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 10. Multipla. Car design isn't just an avenue of the car industry, it's a million and billion dollar thing that can sometimes make or break a car maker. So when Fiat Chrysler Automobiles went and released the Multipla in 1999, people, well, they weren't impressed at all. Now, sure, you can applaud such a thing for certain design specs, including being able to fit 6 people into the vehicle, which at the time was more something for vans and such. But when you looked at the odd bulge at the hood and the way it looked overall, well, it just wasn't visually pleasing. And you can't say that it worked for the time, because there were plenty of 90s vehicles and vehicles from previous decades that looked slick and fast and cool, and this one just didn't. So let's put it to you this way. When the people at Top Gear look at the car and say it's ugly, then yeah, it's ugly and you've lost your design battle. And in 2014, a car website voted it as the ugliest car ever made. So yeah, they didn't make their money back on that design. No way. Number 9, the Walkie-Talkie Building. This building in London is one of the most infamous around for a simple reason: its design. It looked good at first, and its curved shape was unique, especially with the mirrored glass on it. But that design soon proved problematic. Why was that a problem? Because where it was located in London meant that the sun would be beating down on the mirrored and curved glass, which would then reflect and focus the sunlight onto the ground below it, causing things to melt, burn, scorch, and so on. It got so bad that things were being set on fire, and the citizens called the place the Walkie Scorchy. Now, the building itself was already $220 million in cost, but then they had to put a shade across some of the windows to dissipate the light, and thus allow people to go throughout the streets and not burn. This wasn't a good look for the person who designed the building, who was very well respected before this, just to be clear. Number 8. Boeing Vertol Model 235. Let's head now to aerial vehicles. Now, if you know helicopters, you know that their designs are more or less the same, because you need a certain kind of flow to not just fly the helicopters, but keep them balanced, which was apparently lost upon the people who made the Boeing Vertol Model 235, because this thing isn't just ugly, it's odd looking. Now, believe it or not, this model of heli was made for a design competition. Oh, the irony in that one, and was asymmetrical on purpose, as it was designed to put the gunner seat ahead of the pilots, which is, well, just odd. And not surprisingly, the helicopter lost the design competition, though the reason for the loss was apparently because the engine burned too hot in flight, which obviously made it a risk vehicle to the pilot. But we're sure they were just too kind to say it was an ugly duckling of a copter. Number 7. Colombian women's cycling uniforms. Think about your favorite sports team and their uniforms. Depending on how much you love the team, you can see their uniforms perfectly in your head and point out all the features that make it cool. The uniform of a team is supposed to go and make people look at it and go, that is a great look. But when it came to the 2014 Colombian women's cycling team and their uniforms, yeah, not so much. Do we really have to point out what's wrong with these visuals? Okay, we're talking about the brown patch that went from their stomachs to their thighs. This isn't just ugly, it's suggestive in a way that the cyclists no doubt didn't appreciate. Except for Angie Rojas, who was one of the team members and the person who helped design the uniform. Okay, she claims she was happy to wear them, and some feel she did the design intentionally to make a statement. Right. Number 6. Helios Prototype. NASA has gone through many phases in its life, not the least of which was the early 2000s when their budget wasn't the best, and they went and did some, well, curious things as a result of that, including making an aircraft known as the Helios Prototype. If you're curious about the name, it's a reference to how the aircraft is actually solar powered. It's a flying wing, and thus can be flown remotely, and despite its wonky shape, it did set a solar powered altitude record in 2001 by reaching over 50,000 feet. However, as you might have guessed, it wasn't the most structurally sound thing ever. In 2003, a bit of turbulence went and caused the wing to flex and then crash into the Pacific Ocean. Number 5. Apple Macintosh TV. Alright, so when you think of Apple, you think of the successes like the Mac, the iPod, the iPhone, and many other things along the way. But in 1993, Apple decided to go and release something really unique, the Apple Macintosh TV. Now, as the name suggests, it was intended to be a device that would act as both a computer and a TV, thus allowing the user to do everything from their desk and not have to move between one and the other. However, it looked frickin' ugly, and while it may have performed as intended, the $2,000 price tag didn't do it any favors in terms of sales appeal. If you really want to hear how bad this was, the experiment only lasted 10,000 units before its plug was pulled. Number 4. The ego of Bentley. No, we're not saying that the luxury car maker has a big ego, although they kinda do. Rather, we're talking about the 2008 collaboration between the lifestyle brand known as Ego and Bentley. They partnered together to not make a car or even something for a car, but rather they made an incredibly expensive laptop. Oh yes, this is real. Also real was the price tag of $20,000, which for the record was the cost due in part to the luxury bag that featured white gold in the frame handles, which is obviously something we all want in our portable laptops. Not. Oh, and the laptop itself, well, it sucked. It had low specs and it was dubbed an overpriced paperweight. Number 3. The National Library of Kosovo. The National Library of Kosovo's design was meant to be a fusion of cultures to help show the blending style of their nation and the world itself. But when it was actually finished in 1983, it looked like a prison. Not the best aesthetic to lure people into a building to learn. Plus, on opening day, the outer cage, if you will, made it look like a scaffolding, inferring that the place wasn't done, which is another way to sabotage the look of a place. Nice job, guys. You made a library that even fewer people want to go to. Number 2. Joe Hammer J1. Think about a motorcycle right now. What are you picturing? You're either thinking of a fast motor vehicle designed to slice through the air, or a bulky behemoth built for power and show the world you are not to be messed with. Well, the Joe Hammer J1 is, it's neither one of those things. At all. This was an electric motorcycle that did reach 100 miles per hour at top speed, but it came at the cost of just looking really weird. In fact, it was so ugly in its designs that it was eventually compared to a slug or a snail, which was accurate in its own right because the 350 weight of the vehicle made it one to which it took a lot of time to pick up speed. Number 1. Sophia the Robot. Alright, it's well known, AI is going to be the death of humanity, Judgment Day is inevitable after all. But when it came to Sophia the robot, she has a long way to go before blending into human resistance bases like a Terminator. On one hand, she was a highly advanced robot with AI capabilities that allowed her to express emotions via her human-like face. The problem, though, was that her face and how she expressed these emotions delved into uncanny valley territory. The more she did them, the more fake she looked. Granted, we have gotten more advanced since Sophia, but we're not to full robots with AI yet. And for that, honestly, we should be grateful. If for no other reason than you want to look back at robots like these all the time, yeah, we didn't think so. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at designs that might have been made with a good intention, but they just didn't hit the mark? Which of the designs did you look at and cringe once you saw how bad they were? Do you feel bad for the people who hired these people and got this back? Do you know of any other designs that really missed the mark? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.